meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.
All right, 4 minutes after 11 o'clock. Thank you for tuning in this Monday morning. Hope you're doing well. Nice looking day out there, by the way. I've shared this with many of you before, and it is the fact that I don't smoke cigars anymore. But I used to. I used to smoke them all the time, and I used to. It started out as basically I started smoking cigars as a burning cigar guy. In other words, I liked the smell of them. I know some of you don't, but I did. And I think I did because I connected it with my dad when I was a kid. Whenever I'd smell that cigar smoke, it was always a good time. Something was happening that was fun. So I remember buying some cigars when I was a kid just to burn them in my car. When I say kid, I mean a young man. I'm driving and I'm burning a cigar in my car, and then slowly but surely I started puffing on it, and it became a habit. To the point where I thought, I'm addicted. I am addicted to these things. I can't, and it was I was addicted in my car for whatever reason. I didn't really smoke them a whole lot outside of the car. And I successfully got rid of that habit like 7 years ago or so. It's been a while, maybe longer ago than that. However, people will bring in donuts here, and they'll be sitting on the counter, and I'll get off the air, and there will be some glazed donuts just sitting there, and I think, gosh, I gotta avoid them. I am addicted to those things. I don't know if food addiction is really an addiction. Dr. Daniel S. Kirschenbaum is on the phone. He's got some answers and maybe some solutions to some of these problems, and maybe even a different way of looking at this whole issue. He has a list of credentials. Let me just touch on some of them. He's a professor of psychiatry and behavioral sciences at Northwestern University's Medical School. He's the director of the Center of Behavioral Medicine and Sports Psychology in Chicago, Illinois. He has been on Dateline NBC, Dr. Oz, The Today Show, Good Morning America, Dr. Phil, Dr. Drew, you name it. He's been part of it, and he's helping us all understand our own desires when it comes to the things that we maybe should start to stay away from. Athlete, not food addict is the title of the book. If nothing else, that's going to pique your interest in what this is about. Athlete, not food addict. Wellspring's 7 Steps to Weight Loss. Dr. Daniel S. Kirschenbaum. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
Thank you for being on the air with us. Yeah, I think I am addicted to those donuts outside the door here.
Kind of doubt it.
You doubt it. Now, why? Explain why you doubt that.
Well, the notion of food addiction just isn't supported by science. It's just a common way of thinking about it, and most people do believe in that there are addictive properties to food. But addiction is a pretty specific phenomena that is defined, and it has to have 7 different criteria met in order to qualify. And with food, it doesn't work that way. You don't have withdrawal symptoms if you stop eating donuts, for example. If you eat one donut, you don't have to have 8 tomorrow. It doesn't have that kind of tolerance. It just doesn't work that way. Food is desirable and we like it, but it's not something that is like heroin or cigarettes or any of the other addictions. So
are we just misusing the word addiction? Is it a matter of semantics? I mean, the problem is still there. You're eating when you don't you have a habit of eating. You're not really needing the food or the calories that it represents.
Well, yeah, it's a misuse of a concept, and it's not just semantics, because the notion of addiction carries with it a whole sense of hopelessness. I can't control this. It's more powerful than I am. I need to go to some meeting in order to, change the way I focus on it. So it's more than semantics, in my view. And a different concept is available, and that is the athlete notion. So my book, Athlete, Not Food Addict, is really all about trying to change the perception around, is that weight controllers, people who want to regulate their weight and who are overweight, are better off thinking of themselves as athletes, not food addicts. That every athlete's body resists performance. The body doesn't want to work that hard to get faster and stronger and better at things. And the weight controller's body doesn't want to lose the weight. The body resists it much in the way that an athlete's body resists all the training and the work and the repetitions required to become great at sports.
So how do we use that? I mean, are you saying that if we change our minds, we can change our bodies?
If we change our minds, it helps to change our bodies. It doesn't do it for us. It's just like if an athlete gets in their head that, okay, I'm going to be great at running, and I can do it, and I believe in it, that doesn't make them great. They have to go out there and put the work in.
Okay, and you know what this sounds like? This sounds like we had as a guest on it. I'm not really a follower of the TV show The Biggest Loser, but we had one of the winners from The Biggest Loser on just a couple weeks ago, and he went from being like 200 pounds overweight to looking really chiseled and in shape. But I said, what's different about your life now than back then? And he said he's doing a 5K almost every day, and he's running all that. So he became an athlete where he wasn't at all before.
Well, you don't have to become an athlete, literally. It's just have to get the mindset that like an athlete. Like the athlete's body resists performance, that it's not a natural thing to be able to run a 5-minute mile or to hit a golf ball 300 miles right down the middle of a fairway. These aren't natural biological acts. You have to train yourself to do it. So you don't have to become an athlete, but you have to have the athlete's healthy obsession, for example. That's a central tenet in the approach that I take. And a healthy obsession is a preoccupation with the planning and execution of key target behaviors in order to reach a goal. So every day, athletes think about, how am I going to get my training in? What am I eating today? And how am I going to get a decent amount of sleep? Every day, they think about those kinds of parameters are on their minds in order to achieve their goals. And a weight controller, it's the same thing. You can't just take off a day because it's National Potato Day. You can't just say, well, I'll eat whatever I feel like and I won't move. Well, you can't succeed that way. It's an everyday thing to get your body to do what you want it to do.
All right, so I'm trying to figure out how I plug into this. Is there some kind of self-hypnosis thing I engage in, or what?
Well, you get my book and memorize it. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two is that you self-monitor. You track your eating and your activity. You get a pedometer, and you wear that, and that gives you a place to start on the activity side, and you target, I'd say, 12,000 steps a day. So you don't have to run a marathon, but you do have to get out there and move. The average adult gets about 4,000 steps a day. So you want to do 3 times the amount of activity as the average adult in the United States. And then the target for the self-monitoring of the food, the number one target is to get the fat intake down to as close to 0 as possible. That's your aspirational goal, no fat. You won't be able to do that, but you'll be able to get close to that if you work at it, and you'll be able to get to less than 20 fat grams a day. The average man in the United States is doing about 100 fat grams a day. So it's much less fat intake.
Well, wouldn't it be detrimental to us if theoretically, if we could get it down to 0?
Yeah, if you could, but it's impossible.
Okay.
There are partial fat grams in apples and carrots and chicken and fish and everything. You can't do it.
Okay.
So it's essentially not worth worrying about whether it's detrimental. It's really it's hard enough to do, and there have been studies on people who are very successful as weight losers, both teenagers and adults, and who target 0. They don't get there; they get into the 20 range, and that's perfectly healthy. There's no dietitians. There are no dietitians who would say, "Geez, that's no good." I mean, it's fine. It's perfectly fine.
Now you said to monitor yourself. The Weight Watchers people, they recommend you don't weigh yourself every day. Do you monitor yourself with a scale?
Yeah, you do, because if that's what the Weight Watchers people are doing, they're not recommending in accord with science. The recent evidence over the last 10 years have been people who studied these things that daily weigh-in is a good idea. it promotes a healthy obsession and better outcomes. So it used to be, and I've been helping people with weight control for almost 40 years, and I definitely didn't recommend getting on a scale every day 20 years ago. But the evidence has turned around on that, and it shows that it's helpful to do exactly that, to get on a scale every day.
So if we replace the word addict with habit or something, like I was a cigar habit guy, okay?
Yeah.
If I'm a food habit guy, food addict, in other words, with parentheses, I mean quotations around addict, then do I take your approach and say, I'm looking at those donuts out there and I'm not going to touch them, and that's somehow different than I'm looking at those donuts and I'm not going to touch them without the athletic approach to this?
No, you think of yourself as a weight controller athlete, not as a food habit person.
Okay.
You think of yourself as a weight controller athlete, and that is a totally different concept, and part of your training is to minimize fat intake. So that you bring that awareness to everything you eat, because you're targeting zero fat. So eating a donut, if it's a Krispy Kreme, for example, has 23 fat grams. That's more than a day's worth of fat. And so you bring a consciousness to everything you eat, which is not as onerous as it sounds once you get used to it. It's something that it becomes perfectly normal, and it's actually something athletes do as well. My other area of specialization is sports psychology, so I work with all kinds of athletes and spend time at the Olympic training centers. And, athletes do exactly that. They don't just eat randomly. They pay attention to what they're eating, and everything's labeled at the Olympic Training Center in Colorado Springs. All the food's labeled, fat grams, protein, calories, and athletes are quite conscious about what they're putting in their bodies.
They certainly are, and I know quite a few athletes who fit that description perfectly. A real quick question. Dr. Daniel S. Kirschenbaum is our guest, and Doctor, you, according to your credentials, which you've got many of, you are the president of Wellspring, and I think I read somewhere that you're the founder of Wellspring, too. Help me out with that. What is that? Wellspring
is the leading provider of treatment services for overweight young people in the United States. It's an organization, that's a privately held organization from a company that creates weight loss camps. And so there are 9 weight loss camps that operate in the summers. They're all over the United States, and there's one in England. And it uses the approach that I've helped develop, and that emphasizes some of these same points: the weight controller athlete, the notion of a healthy obsession, the importance of self-monitoring and wearing pedometers and setting those kind of goals. And it creates, in each of these camps, we create essentially a nearly ideal weight-controlling environment. It's very different than a Biggest Loser approach. It's not a sort of boot camp, push, emphasis at all. It's really, here's the science, here's what it says, here's a self-monitoring journal. We give the teenagers who are involved primarily a little journal and pedometer and a calorie counting, fat gram counting book, and we arrange activities that they'll generally like that are not that crazy making, like going for a walk before breakfast. It's not that horrible a thing to do.
Sure. Do you know what I can already see, and I'm trying to imagine this. I can already see the mindset part of this, and fill in the blanks or add to what I'm about to say. But let's say somebody's listening right now, and they're sitting on the couch, and they've got, who knows, a bowl of chips or something to their side, and they've been picking at it as they're listening to us, okay? And they know, and that person knows, I'm really overweight, and that person may have believed up until now that they were addicted to those Cheetos or whatever it is. Okay, as soon as they hear you say, don't look at it as being addicted, but rather look at yourself as an athlete, if they really embrace that, I could see them saying, you know what, he's right. And then putting down that Dorito or whatever it is, and going out to wherever you would buy a pedometer and getting started. I could see this happening.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, that's ideal. I mean, one of the things that athletes do that applies perfectly to your scenario of the living room is that they arrange their environment to support their training. In a very particular way in terms of the people around them, the coaches, the teams, and also the food environment. So the very first thing to do as a weight controller athlete is go through the house and get rid of everything that has fat in it from your house. Because that space in which you live, in which you spend most of your life, or a huge part of your existence, you don't want it to have temptations that are challenging to your system. So you want to get rid of it. So you take a big black garbage bag, one of the giant kind, and you dump all that stuff. And you even dump things like olive oil, which has great reputation, but it's a pure fat. It's just a healthy kind of fat.
Yeah.
But you want it gone, and then you take a trip to the grocery store and replace it with chicken broth and other things, but make the things fun, things that you like to eat. You can have turkey hot dogs, and you can make fat-free pizza, and you can have frozen yogurt, and there's lots of wonderful things to eat. That's one of the eating principles that I emphasize, is find lovable foods that love you back.
So are you okay with the breads? I mean, we have so many. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. There's the science on this is very clear that a very low-fat approach is, when you're talking about macronutrients like carbohydrates and fat, the very low-fat approach is the way to go. And you can certainly have breads and potatoes and all kinds of carbohydrates. They're always, they're the primary energy source. And
so spaghetti's okay, meatballs are out.
Well, turkey meatballs would be.
Oh, turkey meatballs, okay.
Or bison meatballs, very low fat would be in.
I have a quick question about addictions, and I'm just going to veer just for a second away from the food, because we've had in the studio people who swore up and down they were sex addicts before getting rehabilitated, and they went to these programs that cost them thousands of dollars. And whenever I would ask them, well, what was the nature of your sex addiction? It didn't sound like sex to me. It sounded like pornography. Because sex to me would be with another person. It didn't sound like they were doing that at all. But still, I mean, just using the word addiction and trying to figure out where it belongs and where it doesn't belong. Does it belong there?
I don't think so. I really don't. I mean, the definition, the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of the American Psychiatric Association is essentially a big dictionary that defines these kinds of things, and through a consensus of a lot of people. And for the most part, even though it's a psychiatric organization and I'm a psychologist, most psychologists kind of go with those definitions. And so that's a place to start, and if you have a question about an addiction. And, the addictions have to meet certain criteria, including things like tolerance and withdrawal and a sense of loss of control and an interference with your everyday life to a substantial degree. And for the most part, it doesn't meet some of those criteria like tolerance and withdrawal with the sex addiction. Probably doesn't meet that criteria, that you have to have more and more and more in order to achieve the same results. For example, probably that's what's called tolerance, or that you'll have withdrawal symptoms like a flu-like symptoms if you stop doing it. I probably feel better. So it doesn't really, people use the term to sort of justify their behavior. That I did this stuff because I had like this disease, this addiction came over me, and it was so powerful that it wasn't me making terrible choices. But that's really what it is. It's being used that way. And the Tiger Woods thing a few years ago, there was all the talk about sex addiction, and there's lots of clinics. I think it's a problem when you're so focused on sex that it interferes with your life. But I don't know why we have to call it an addiction.
Okay.
It could be a major problem in living.
And now another thing that I wanted to bring it back to the food, another thing that you'll hear people say is that if you have a food addiction, and I know you don't like that term, but just hear me out. So let's say I'm addicted to Oreos or whatever, and I know the word addiction doesn't apply. They will say, well, here, trade it out for something else. Become addicted to something else, or at least become habitually connected to something else. Is that, does that seem to work for this whole idea of becoming an athlete?
Yeah, you just don't need the addiction concept for most people most of the time. Now, there are some people who do meet the standard definition for a food addiction. It's just a tiny fraction of overweight people. It's not most overweight people. It's a tiny fraction. There was a study, very good study done a few years ago based on really good kind of in-person surveys that showed about 2.8% of the American people meet a definition of having a binge eating disorder. It's kind of lesser than an addiction, but still in that neighborhood. They had a binge eating disorder that was so significant that it qualified for a pretty reasonable definition. Well, 2.8% is a small number when you consider that 69% of Americans are overweight or obese. So, yeah, there are some people who have this problem at a pretty extreme level, but it's a small number. And in terms of swapping things out, absolutely. You want to find lovable foods that love you back. You want to a regular Oreo doesn't do it. It's lovable, but it doesn't love you back. It's destructive. So you want to find alternatives that work, and just finding a fat-free Snackwell cookie or something isn't necessarily going to help you much because it has a lot of sugar in it, and it'll probably make you hungrier.
By the way, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but one of the things that I've observed in people I've known who've lost weight, there are two types. There is the person who lost weight. I'm not so sure how. Maybe they just stopped eating as much, or they went and had some kind of stomach surgery or something. And then there is the person who took on the athletic lifestyle. And if you compare the two, the one who took on the athletic lifestyle really does look a lot better.
That's a good point. It's you actually hit upon an actual finding in the research. When you look at people who've had bariatric or obesity surgeries, they are not quite as active as the people who have lost the weight without the surgery. So the activity level and the stringency of the fat intake isn't quite the same because the body is doing some of the work for them, producing what's called malabsorption. With the most common form of bariatric surgery, it produces, your body essentially sucks some of the nutrients and calories out of what you eat. And the body is working in favor of you not having, the excess calories, so you don't have to work quite as hard, and people don't. Then people will look better if they exercise more quite often. So I think you're hit upon a true finding out there.
By the way, the theme song to Rocky is playing in my head right now. Dr. Daniel S. Kirschenbaum is our guest. We're almost out of time. The book is called Athlete, Not Food Addict, Wellspring's 7 Steps to Weight Loss. We haven't even touched on the 7 steps. The cover shows some before and after photos of some people who've done the program and lost some weight. I'd like to give away the book that I have to a listener. So if you want the book I have, call me at 622-WOCA, and you'll get the book. That's the WOCA Climate Control Source Hotline. And Dr. Kirschenbaum, could you give us some information so we can buy the book? Do you have a website, for example?
Well, it's at New Horizons Press, the publisher, but Amazon.com would work pretty easily if you just remember the last name or even the title, Athlete, Not Food Addict. You could find it pretty easily. It's supposed to be in bookstores pretty soon, but it's really just being released right around now.
There you go. And let me give this one away. Good morning. You've got the book. Who's this?
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you so much, sir. This is Mary.
Hi, Mary.
I'd like to see that book.
All right. It'll be waiting for you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Real quickly, I have a question for you, Doctor, about water as an exercise. We have so many great places to swim right here in this part of Florida. If you're not getting heated by jogging and instead you're swimming, does that have the same effect?
Yeah, it's a wonderful form of exercise, and your body is getting heated. You're just not noticing it. The only thing is floating doesn't work.
And we have a lot of that around here, too.
Yeah, the floating is fine. I mean, it's a great relaxing thing to do. It's just you have to be contracting muscles to expend energy. So if you're floating, or if you're doing some kind of modified backstroke where you're hardly moving, you're not going to get much out of that.
Well, it sounds like a really good psychiatric approach or psychological approach, I guess, to losing weight is to have that mindset that, I love the idea of getting a pedometer. Here you go. Here's how much I walked today, and tomorrow I'm going to do better, right?
Yeah, and the research on it is pretty clear. If you put a pedometer on, you're going to increase your activity from what it normally is. That's just putting it on. But if you put it on and have a goal in mind, particularly something like 12,000 steps, which is fairly demanding, you're going to do even better. At Wellsprings, the Wellspring camps, the kids do about 24,000 steps a day. Remember, the average adult's only doing 4,000, so it's 6 times more activity.
Wow.
And that's one of the reasons they lose an average of 4 pounds a week.
Thank you. Doctor, thank you for being on. We're up against the clock. And again, the book is called Athlete, Not Food Addict. Look for it on Amazon. Dr. Kirschenbaum is who you look up, Kirschenbaum. Thank you, Doctor.
Thank you, Larry. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll be right back.
Fox News Radio, I'm Pat O'Neill. It's destroyed about 100 homes already, and it's threatening many others. A huge wildfire in the Texas Panhandle.
Mandatory evacuations are in place in Hutchinson County, Texas, just north of Amarillo, where officials expect it will be windy again today. Schools are closed, and Highway 136 is still shut down to all traffic, except for emergency vehicles.
Fox News Radio's Jeff Manazzo, the father of one of the Nigerian girls who got away from the Islamist rebel group Boko Haram, is speaking out, saying many teachers at the school ran away when gunfire erupted.
One of the teachers locked the gate, and there is no way for them to escape.
Almost 300 girls were kidnapped a month ago from the school. On Wall Street, stocks are up sharply, with the Dow Jones Industrials extending their climb into record territory. Higher tech stocks are giving the Nasdaq a boost. Fox News, we report, you decide.
There is something about the road that beckons, that invites us to pack up the family and leave the world behind. And there is something about an industry-leading unlimited mileage warranty on a certified pre-owned Mercedes-Benz that gives us the freedom to do exactly that. You take to the highway, rack up the miles for up to 3 years, and drive with the assurance that your Mercedes-Benz is covered. You have the security of being in a car that has been certified to Mercedes-Benz standards, while you enjoy a carefree ownership experience for miles and miles. But while the mileage is unlimited, your time to take advantage of our certified pre-owned sales event is not. Now through June 2nd, you can also receive complimentary prepaid maintenance and a 2-month payment credit on select models, plus 3 months of Sirius XM satellite radio. So hurry into your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer today and see why we say the odometer is there to record the memories.
See your authorized Mercedes-Benz dealer for complete details and limitations on certified pre-owned warranties.
Habitat for Humanity of Marion County is a ministry dedicated to improving lives by providing affordable and decent housing. Help them help others by visiting the Habitat for Humanity Ocala Restore at 926 Northwest 27th Avenue. To schedule a donation, give us a call at 401-0075 and we'll come pick it up. For more information, visit ocalarestore.org. Habitat for Humanity of Marion County. Building homes, building hope, building community.
Here are today's headlines from the source WOCA. The Ocala Police Department is reporting the arrest of a man and a woman, both from Dunellen, charged with kidnapping, carjacking, and numerous other charges after a woman was rescued from the trunk of her own car. The arrested are identified as 21-year-old Silas Paul Deaton and 20-year-old Haley Grace Kuttner. According to the report, the kidnapped woman, identified as Lynn Humphreys, told deputies that she had agreed to give the arrested couple a ride at 1:25 a.m. yesterday. Humphreys allegedly reported that she drove to a secluded area with the couple to smoke marijuana with them. At this point, Deaton allegedly attacked Humphreys, claiming that she owed him $50. Deaton then held a knife to Humphreys' throat, and Kuttner took a rope from her purse and tied Humphreys' arms. Humphreys said that the couple ordered her to get into the trunk of the car or be killed. From inside the trunk, Humphreys telephoned 911 for help and gave law enforcement her location using the GPS on her phone. The Ocala Police Department stopped the car at the 4600 block of East Silver Springs Boulevard in Ocala, and Humphreys pulled the trunk emergency release cable and was able to escape from the trunk. The Florida Highway Patrol is reporting the death of a 20-year-old woman who was involved in a single-vehicle accident Saturday morning. The deceased woman is identified in the report as 20-year-old Kendall Dawn Seidel of Silver Spring Shores. According to the report, Seidel was driving a 2008 Pontiac Torrent in the 8700 block of Southeast 110th Street Road on Saturday morning. The Pontiac had been traveling eastbound and, for an unknown reason, veered onto the south grassy shoulder. Seidel apparently overcorrected to the left in an effort to get back onto the roadway, according to the Florida Highway Patrol, and then oversteered to the right. The vehicle overturned at least twice, ejecting Seidel. Seidel was pronounced deceased at the scene by Marion County Fire Rescue personnel. Seidel was not wearing her seatbelt, and speed was a factor, according to the report. The Marion County Sheriff's Office is reporting that an employee of the Sheriff's Office was found dead by another employee in a vehicle underneath a wooden shelter near the agency's garage on Saturday afternoon. The Ocala Police Department is handling the case and say that so far they do not suspect foul play. According to the report, a Sheriff's Office employee who works in the Emergency Management Bureau had difficulty getting into the department's mobile command center, and Brian C. Gibson, who was 30 years old, assisted him to get in. After getting into a vehicle, the employee left. Gibson's department vehicle was parked in a spot normally reserved for an armored SWAT team vehicle when the employee left. A member of the SWAT team arrived and saw Gibson's vehicle still parked in the same spot. Another employee showed up and went to get a set of spare keys to move the vehicle. Upon opening the vehicle, he saw Gibson slumped over, dead in the driver's seat. Authorities say they found no sign of foul play. And the jackpot in the Florida Lotto game has grown to $45 million after no one matched the 6 winning numbers in the latest drawing. Lottery officials said yesterday that 26 tickets matched 5 numbers to win $5,898 apiece. Another 1,747 tickets matched 4 numbers. Each of those ticket holders will receive $77.50, and 37,214 tickets matched 3 numbers. Each of those ticket holders will receive $5. The winning Florida Lotto numbers selected Saturday were 1, 2, 10, 35, 42, and 44. And those are the headlines from the source, WOCA 96.3 FM and 1370 AM.
The weather is brought to you by myfwc.com. Life jackets save lives. Where in Florida? There'll be a shower along the coast this morning. Otherwise, it'll be a warm day with clouds and sunshine with a high of 84 at the coast, 89 inland. Clear to partly cloudy tonight, low 69 inland, 76 along the coast. Tomorrow, times of clouds and sun with a high of 83 at the coast, 90 inland. Wednesday, times of clouds and sun with a shower or thunderstorm, high 84 to 88. From the Florida Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Joe Lundberg.
On the next Voice of Ocala, it's Community Gazette Day. Buddy Martin and I are live at the TPC Sawgrass for the Players Championship, brought to you by Golden Ocala Golf and Equestrian Club. We'll have on the show many people talking golf, plus we'll have Joe Williams of Mile High Sports getting us ready for the second round of the NFL Draft. All that and more on Community Gazette Day, 1370 AM, 96.3 FM. We're streaming live at WOCA.com, the source.
Hi, I'm Leah Caruso with Strive Rehabilitation, inviting you to join me Thursday at 11 a.m. for Health Matters. Ocala Health and Strive have teamed up to bring you the latest information on good health services available to you right here at home. This vital information will help you make informed decisions about your health. So don't forget to join me here at 11 a.m. Thursday. It's news you can use from Ocala Health, Strive, and your friends here at WOCA.
Good credits, bad credits. It's none of our business because we're not an auto dealer. We're not a bank. We're not your mother. We're OcalaForSale.com. Marion County's marketplace for cars, trucks, and SUVs. We've got thousands of sellers standing by to take your call. No middleman. But hurry, don't walk, don't run. Just sit down and log on to OcalaForSale.com. Prices and inventory change daily. Offer does not include dealer upcharge, undercutting, rust proofing, factory surcharge, or delivery fee. See website for details.
Stay informed on everything going on in the villages with the Village Spectator newspaper. The Village Spectator is exclusively devoted to the villages with news, commentary, and more. And yes, they have Tom's Picks, a free referral for people who are looking for a company to do work for them. Tom's Picks will refer the company that fits your needs, and all we ask is that you tell them where you heard about them. Call Tom's Picks at 804-1223 and pick up your copy of the Village Spectator today.
Now read Ocala Downtown newspaper online.
Ocala's information station, 1370 WOCA.
Ocala.